I'm Tom, I'm invested in the Cosmere, and I have another Cosmere RPG map for you, this time courtesy of Death Ranger 009, whose idea was to create a Shipwreck set in Shadesmar. Now, I had very recently created a Shadesmar battle map, and it was actually creating that battle map that kind of inspired, in part, this series. And while I did one of these very recently, I think Shadesmar is such a unique atmosphere in Roshar and just the Cosmere in general that there's going to be no such thing as having too many of these maps. So let's get right into it. While our map is loading up here, I wanted to take a look at some of the fan art and the official art surrounding the ships in Shadesmar that we've seen thus far, Honor's Path being sort of one of the most notable ones. We have this really great visual from Kyle Pearson, and then we have some of the inside art from actually don't know who the artist was on this one, but if you go on to brandonsanderson.com and look at each one of the books, you have all of the official artwork here. And so, you know, the two most notable things about the ships in Shadesmar is one, that they're pulled by Mandras, Spren, who sort of drag the ship along, floating on top of the bead ocean. And of course that the masts of the ship are underneath the ship. I don't think we're going to be able to do much with Mandras, but I bet we can pull off the masts underneath the ship, especially since this is a shipwreck. Now, one of the things that we're going to be making use of is some of the assets that I had actually created for our previous Cosmere RPG Shadesmar map. I'll link to that asset, the map in the description below, and also to the page on my website where you can go and download not only that map from Shadesmar, but also this texture that I created to represent sort of the bead ocean. This doesn't just have to work in Inkarnate. It is just a regular repeating pattern. So if you're using any kind of design software or any other sort of map making software that allows you to load up custom patterns, you can use this, and I grant you permission to do so. So feel free to go and make your own custom maps, your own bead oceans with this map, or with this texture pack rather. Now, what I'm going to look to do is just kind of start with this bead ocean. You know, I'm really picturing a mid-ocean map here. This is maybe something that your party could come up upon either by sailing out to it somehow, or maybe they were on this ship and it crashed on shore and they're sort of waking up into this situation. But whatever the cause may be, I think there's going to be a lot of really interesting sort of stories you can tell with this setting. So if you recall from the last video, or if you didn't catch it, definitely check it out. There is a great texture pack within Inkarnate called Obsidian that really sells sort of that Shadesmar vibe. I mean, they call it Obsidian in Stormlight, so it matches. It's kind of exactly what they're talking about by design. And so what we're going to be building here, with the black, this is going to be really hard to tell. Maybe I can change the color just for now. I won't output it with this red, but it'll just be easier to see on top of the black. We're going to build out a little island here, but I kind of just want to get my scale locked down for a moment, and then move on to getting the shipwreck picked out, figuring out what kind of tile set we want. These ships are generally very large, I would think, and I think this big shipwreck up on this little island that wasn't quite spotted would be really cool. And I think I want to build the actual island that we wrecked up against based on what exactly we have from the shipwreck. So we're going to go shipwreck first, then island, but I just wanted to point out the obsidian pattern. We have lots of different ones that we can kind of choose here, so I think we're going to have a lot of really cool options to play around with. So I do believe there is a shipwreck pattern. Yeah, so we have a couple of options here. There is some component pieces that we can bring in, or there's sort of this like front, back, and middle section. I kind of like this more open bit because the difficulty with this is going to be creating it in such a way that it's still usable as a battle map, something that your players can actually walk around on. And so, as a result, and for sort of the length that I want to accomplish, as well as sort of the implied scale that we're getting from some of these design elements, in this case, there's this set of stairs. You know, how wide would a set of stairs be in this case? If this is a 5x5 square, that would mean that the stairs going across is like 2.5 feet. I don't actually know how wide stairs are, but it doesn't quite feel like the right scale. And, you know, when you're looking at the overall amount of space we'd have with all of these different pieces, I really want to, you know, kind of take some time early on here and lock in our scale and our design. And, you know, I don't really mind it being this kind of like massive battle map. I think it could actually be fairly interesting if that becomes the case. It's not quite 5 feet, but it's just about 5 feet. That might be too small, but let's get all of our component pieces down and see where we end up. So I'm just going to lay out like 1, 2, 3 our pieces, and then what I'm hoping we've got is a mast. We have the wood. Not exactly what I'm going for. Let's see if we have something like a mast that we can highlight. Could be something like this that, you know, what we're going to do is just hint to it by putting it underneath part of the ship, as if it is buried underneath or sort of driven into the stonework. But first we've got to find something that makes sense. And I'm thinking something white, or maybe like natural canvas, that kind of like cream brown look. You know, something like that color is right, but I don't think you're going to get the... I mean, this isn't bad, because what I'm going to do is send it underneath and sort of show it. It's not bad. I'm going to hold on to this for right now. You're never going to know because it's underneath. Well, you'll know. We'll know together. We'll know that it's just curtains. And that's okay. It's all a part of the illusion. It's all smoke and mirrors for our adventuring parties anyway. So using curtains to show a little bit of a mass just to give it that pop of detail is a willing sacrifice I'm certainly going to make. This one thing that Inkarnate does really cool is this broken aesthetic they give for so many of the different sets. They have like, here's a built up one and here's a broken one. For whatever reason, they love having broken things. And so it gives us lots of options to do something cool like that. That's a little bit bigger. That's actually kind of, it's better in a way, except for what the sort of the this is covered furniture, so there's some like hangingness around the corners of the table that may not look completely natural, but we'll do it side by side and see where we go. I definitely want to do something with this, some of the ropes perhaps. Ship ropes, that's pretty cool. Or maybe be a little detail we add later. One thing I love to add to maps is small visual details. How did I miss this ship when I was building the Reshi Island map. That is like exactly what I picture when we went to the Reshi Islands. Man, lost opportunity. That's okay. We can always come back to that map later. I think we've got two good examples, and we can kind of dive in. But I love building into these type of maps little details that might inspire a player in the session. So like they see a coil of rope in a corner and then on the map, and then they try to incorporate that in some way into their gameplay. I just think it's a really satisfying experience, both for somebody who spends a fair bit of time making these maps ahead of time, but also you know as a game master, like the players thinking outside of the box and trying to use more than just what's on their character sheet to their advantage. I'm really feeling strongly about this covered furniture over this. So here's what I think we'll do. Because the mast is likely broken off, right? That certainly happened. So let's get that mast. And it doesn't quite fit, doesn't quite match. But kind of what I'm going for is like something like that, where it's broken. Is there any mast that design-wise will fit? That one just looks like the wood is a different color. It's kind of strange. This one's not quite there either. It's not too bad. It's better than the other one. And I almost like having, like, the mast may have broken in several places. Let's set these aside for now and build out some of the... Well, let's check our scale, number one. So this ship would be roughly 15 feet right there. That feels large. That's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, almost 30 feet across. I'm just going to do a little bit of Googling. And just see what masted ships actually looked like. So, this isn't going to help. That's not what I want. It counts to go to this level of depth and think about the way that you're building out maps and sort of the feasibility and reality of it, because you don't want to... You want to have something to kind of refer back to and scale off of. It takes some time. I wasn't getting the answer that I wanted, though. It can really pay off if this is something that you end up referring back to at a later date, or if you're going to try to replicate or riff off of this at some other point. There's definitely, you want to have you want to have it based in something or something repeatable. It's sometimes if you go a little haphazard about it, it can end up biting you in the end. Let's see. I don't know if I want these here. The mast color is really bothering me. But what we will do is we'll start to build out this obsidian. And so, there's definitely going to be a point here where our ship... Let's take just a quick second and make sure we're going to set this shipwreck to the highest layer. Our ship is going to have run aground on some part of the ground here. And, I'm trying to think about what a shipwreck looks like. Like when this ship was traveling, it would have hit something, either straight on or glancing, and caused the ship to rend in this way. And so maybe let's put this tight together and just kind of like sketch out what this would have been like. Again, like totally unnecessary detail, but you want it to feel realistic and cool, and this is the way I think about these things as I'm building it. So, we kind of have to have this reason that this chunk of a ship is gone, and maybe there's a pretty nasty spren out in these bead oceans that took away that piece. But I'm almost thinking like what we were doing was we kind of realized we were in trouble as we were coming at it. We attempted to turn, and that's when, boom, we hit and we broke up. So the front kind of becomes broken up here, and the back and the side are just barely holding on as this part of the island kind of tears us up. Yeah, I don't hate that. The other thing you kind of have to think about is that this part of the obsidian that our ship is hitting is water. It's either a pond or it's some other sort of maybe deep part of water that is in the physical realm, and the rest of this is land. And so this would be some small pond or lake, even potentially, out in the middle of what is otherwise a lot of ground. And so it's got to kind of have that natural river feel as well. So maybe it's like one large pond with these like little almost like vernal pools here that are up in other places. We won't, unfortunately, be able to achieve that same opacity look that we did with other water sources because it's just not. I just realized there's a layer above and below the grid line. That's odd. I never noticed that before. Probably is going to make me rethink the way I've laid out a couple of maps, but we can fix that in post. Are we going to keep these? Ooh, that's kind of cool. Because now it kind of adds like a... I still don't love the color of the mast. Is this something we can adjust with hue and... Ooh, not with that. With the appropriate hue and saturation, can we get there? If I was a good color theorist, I could probably find the exact bit of the slider I need to make work to get it onto the right hue. Because that's the thing with hue and saturation, right? Is you're supposed to be able to get to that. That's better. That's better than it was, I feel. Yeah. Proportionately, I think that looks okay. And now it kind of creates this bridge that, again, the storytelling element here. A couple of players could be on this terrain here and then use that to get across. This is looking okay. I am perhaps a little skeptical on the scale. I mean, when you're zoomed in like this is a lot of space. Like, this is a huge map. And maybe some of the creatures that are rather large or flight is involved with this map. I think there's a lot of opportunity for that just because of the overall size that we're going with. But I'm going to look at some of our broken assets just to give this a little bit of life and detail. Because I think there's some cool things you can build out in here. Things like, I have to get a really small scale here. Oh boy. Let's bring our shipwreck down here. There we go. I'll leave these on layer 2, that's okay. Adding in little details like this, even though they're going to be so small potentially on screen, again, just kind of gives opportunities for your party to get inspired by the scenery and the decor around them. And if you're making your own map, kind of looks cool. If you're making your own map, consider if you're sending your party out to do something, like maybe there was a chest on this ship that somebody is going to recover, and your party has been sent out to accomplish that task. Maybe that's something you actually build into your design. Give them that objective to sort of track down, but put it physically on the map. That way they can have the satisfaction of seeing it and recognizing it for what it is, and then getting that, they're going to go run out and physically get there on the map and then have the satisfaction of finding it on their own. I'm just kind of using some of these wooden... This is like a broken table, but it's just going to be random wooden debris. Again, to add like a little bit of noise to the design. Let's take a look at what our design looks like thus far. It's pretty good. It's a little plain in that there's like all this open area. When I did, like, let's go take a look at that other map I created for Shadesmar. Did I not put? Yeah, there it is. See, with that map, what I used a lot of the trees to give like the different flora and fauna and whatnot that you see in Shadesmar. And I just can't help but to feel like, were we to use that here, it kind of takes away from the notion that this was it was a vessel that couldn't see what was coming for them. I think it would be quite obvious if they had these big, bright, colorful trees on it, that something was amiss. But I could be wrong in that. I kind of want to keep that idea of like the bridge between these two little sections here, and then give us more of a natural river and pond-like structure through these. We'll go through and use our obsidian pack here. We're gonna turn down our texture scale just a little bit. Okay. I mean, maybe we can do a little bit. Just a little bit of sort of those crystal formations and the like. Just to, again, like really drive home the scenery. That's what's important here. We want it to feel realistic and purposeful. We also want it to be cool. And cool always wins, I think. I think if it's not cool, it's probably not doing its job. Or at least it won't when your players go to really get engaged with it. Cooler it is, the more epic it feels, the better. Not a ton of detail, just a little bit. Just to differentiate. We just hit the point where I start to ask myself, how long have I been at this for? Is it too long, or am I going too fast? And I'm going to resist the urge to check. I don't like the blue. It's too gemstone-y. Reminds me that doing a beach on Amia with all the gemstones to trick wayward travelers would be pretty cool. That could be a lot of fun. Okay, here's our grid. Let me put it in a different color. This is going to be probably one of the rarer cases where, like, I don't recommend you get the grid version just because it looks really weird with that. I like it. This feels good. I'm happy with this. There's maybe like... There's more my gut says to do when it comes to building out little designs and things, but right now it is a very busy map. Like, a lot of the ground is uneven, and there's very few spaces where you have just like a flat area to go, and I actually kind of like that as an element and a theme of this map. You don't have a good place for even footing, and so combat and moving around, getting around, everything is a little difficult. I think if you incorporate that into your combat encounter, that can be really useful. And so we'll call it at that. I'm going to call this one done. This one feels done. Awesome. If you want more Cosmere RPG maps, check out my website. I have a lot now. If you go to the Cosmere RPG section up at the top, there's a couple of places where I've linked out. There's the Making Map series, which we are currently in. We were on map 5 of the 7 that I will create. So this is map number 5. There's 2 more coming after this one. I haven't decided what they'll be yet, but they'll be on their way. And then I also have just lots of maps that I've created. I've gotten better at it over time, but I have a Vaden Civil War map that I created. I've used that in a couple of my previous videos. I have a War Camp Marketplace map. All of these can be downloaded from Invested in the Cosmere for free. You can come in and download them. I have, wherever possible, I have both the grid and non-grid versions, and then a couple of different scales of quality. So it should fit any scenario you want, whether you're trying to print the map or use it in a virtual tabletop system. There's lots of options for you to check out. So check me out at investedinthecosmere.com, subscribe to the channel, and we'll catch you on the next one.